uh, the breaks, but we'll still do them, but we won't have to be as long in duration. But tonight I'm joined in the first hour by Kimberly Baker. We're going to do an update on the orphanage in Kenya and our efforts, our next stages of our efforts to start the school and the construction. And we just want to give a shout out and a thanks to all those that participated in helping us to purchase the land and to get that going. That was a major step, and definitely want to give a shout out to. And I, don't want to um, mention, but you know who you are, and we greatly appreciate you and thank you for all that you've done. And so, Kimberly, are you there, sister?
Hey, how's it going? I am here. It is so good to talk to you, Zen. It's been a while.
Yeah, it has been a while. I've been going through some health issues, and that's kept me a little bit messed up for a couple weeks. But yeah, it's good to hear from you and to catch up with you. And I've been wanting to do this for a little while and to get things going over there for Robert and his group. Um, can you give out, because we're also going to cover the American Patriot movement as well and the updates that you have with that. So, any contact information that you'd like to share, and also, if you would, can you give out the link to the Kamba, um, the orphanage, if you
Do you
have
want me
that
to stick
handy?
that? Do you want me to stick that in the chat? Because it's so
Yeah, in the
long.
chat, YouTube chat.
I'll
Yeah,
stick
that'd be
that in the chat on the YouTube channel because
okay.
it's Kayumba Rama Children's Home, but it's spelt funny, and so I'll make sure to get
Yeah,
that in the
yeah.
chat as well. Well, as far as and then um as that's the I'll put that one in the chat, and then to get us the arkansas.assembly.net is how you can get us as American State Nationals on Arkansas, and we now have a YouTube channel called the Arkansas Assembly where we're doing jural assembly training and court training. So we do have those two websites as well now.
Oh, awesome. Well, why don't you go ahead and catch us up, uh, with what's going on with that and where you are, and then we'll move into, the focus as far as, and then second hour, I'll be going into the enmity between the seed lines. And the reason I wanted to do this is because I recently watched on the Testament of Moses on Netflix. It was just released, and I think they did a really good job. I was well impressed, especially for Netflix to represent Christian focus and theme. A lot of big mainstream corporations, movie producers, they don't really do a good job, especially like when they released Noah and they tried to portray him as being a homicidal maniac. And I mean, that was, strange twist and all that. And
Right, and
so
the
I'm going to
giants
cover a
were
little
rock
bit of that.
people.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
And the giants were rock people.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Right. Um, yeah. And they were, protecting the Noah and the ark. And um, in the real story, it wasn't the fallen angels. And that was the whole purpose of the flood, was to wipe out the giants and the children that were born of them. And there's this war between the bloodlines that most people don't know about and don't make mention of. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about that this evening because there was you know, a couple of theologians that kept mentioning of this. And even he said his daughter had come back from Sunday school and had asked him, you know, um, about why God had killed all the Egyptians and about how they, because she had said, "Oh, well, aren't they God's people too?" And so that's the thing. That's the thing. A lot of people don't realize that they are actually they were the devil's people, and Pharaoh, he worshipped the fallen angels, and he had relations and interactions with them, and he was also bathing in the blood of innocent Hebrew boys, and had been slaughtering them for 210 years by not allowing them to be born. And so, anyways, we'll go into that this evening. Lisa won't be with us this evening. She is occupied and doesn't have the ability to be here. But anyway, so yeah, if you would, have you seen the Testament of Moses at all?
I did not even know that it was out on Netflix. I will have to go check that out
It just
and
came out
definitely
like a
watch.
couple days ago, I believe. But yes, this is Kimberly Baker. And Kim, can you mention again what you do, how you got
Yes.
involved with it, and where it's gone up until this point, and then we'll go into with the Kaomba and the orphanage and all that.
Okay. So let's see. My husband and I got started in American State National. I guess about 2020, right around COVID time, 2021, and it is reconstructing our Republican form of government, which is the government of the people, by the people, for the people. It is based on the Declaration of Independence. That is what we come under, is the Declaration of Independence. We don't come under the constitutions. We're over the constitutions because the people actually wrote the constitutions for the governments. And the last time I talked to you, I'm pretty sure I'm just going to kind of give an overview. We talked about how there were three constitutions, remember?
Yeah, we do. Hmm.
There's three constitutions. You have the Constitution that was written in 1787. That's your land jurisdiction constitution that was written for our federal republic, which is the we the people government run by, for, and of the people. And then in 1789 we had the sea jurisdiction constitution, which is the constitution for the British territorial government, which is the government that we see in place with the president and the Congress and all of that. Then you have the third constitution, which was written in 1790, and that is the air constitution, and that is the contract that we made with the Vatican, the Roman Holy Empire, and that we have in our municipal. That's all of the municipal stuff that we have set up here. So those are your three constitutions. And then in 1790, we had what was called the Judiciary Act. And the Judiciary Act, what that did is, here in our country, in law, in international law, you have LAW, land, air, and sea. That's your three jurisdictions. And so we had three constitutions for three jurisdictions. And then the Judiciary Act in 1790 split the land jurisdiction and the sea jurisdiction apart from one another. And so in 1861, when the Continental Congress walked out right before the Civil War, it didn't get reconstructed. And our federal republic, which is the Constitution we have from the land Constitution, that didn't get reconstructed after the Civil War either. And so what we've had is had we have three legs of our government, and one leg has been missing, and it's the we the people leg, and it's our courts, our common law courts. If you go through the Constitution, you'll see all the time that we're owed the common law. We're owed the common law, but we don't even understand what common law is because we haven't had a common law court. And so we are in the process, or have been in the process, of reconstructing our courts. And so in Arkansas, we have set up our courts, and we have held our first case. And the first case that we held, we have a lady here in Hot Springs, where I live in Arkansas, and in 2018, she had made a contract. She had land here and had horses. And so she made a contract with a rescue to house their horses on her property, and they would be responsible for taking care of their own horses. And anyway, they brought in a rescue, 3 rescues, and someone, I guess, called in and said that there were starving horses there. And with no notice or anything, they just came to her house and arrested her. And she had 7 horses and donkeys of her own. And then the rescue had 4 horses, and 3 of them were those really skinny ones I told you about. But the police came and took all of her horses and all of the rescue horses and put her in jail for 9 counts of animal cruelty, even though the only horses that were, starving or starved, but were the 3 rescue horses who they had just rescued 3 weeks prior. So, she was arrested for that, and she never got a trial. That was 6 years ago. She never got a trial. And then she was arrested again because she was trying to sell her mobile home to pay for all of these fees and lawyers to get her horses back. And she made a contract. It was during COVID, and they couldn't get, she couldn't get her title in the mail because everything, when COVID hit, everybody knows that it was hard to get any kind of work done. Can you hear me?
Yes, I was just saying that everything shut down. So
yeah, everything shut down. So, in order to get your title, which you would normally just mail in for and they mail it back, it took 3 months to get it back instead of a shorter time. So the people that she contracted to sell the mobile home to, the guy said, well, since you don't have the title and hadn't come in, we can't wait. So she gave him his $2,000 earnest money back. Contract's good. Everybody's good. No big deal. 12 days later, his wife files charges against her for stealing the $2,000, even though she has receipts, and everything that she paid the lady's husband back. But the lady filed criminal charges on her 12 days later. That was strange. And then, so she tries to sell her house, sell the trailer again to someone else. And then all of a sudden the cops come in and tell the lady that she's trying to sell her mobile home to that she's a criminal and that she stole the house. And so when Cheryl found this out, Cheryl gave the lady her $8,000 back, and she basically said, I don't know what's going on here. And then she had another charge. So now she has 2 felony charges for theft of her own house, and these 9 cruelty to animal charges. Anyway, they were all bogus. So we had a grand jury look at this case, and after the grand jury looked at it, it went to a 12-man petit jury, and the verdict came in that she was found not guilty. She has not harmed. So in common law, you have to harm someone. There has to be a victim. Someone has to be the victim of a crime, whether they've been harmed or injured, or there's got to be some sort of property damage, or theft of property. There has to be someone who is an injured party. Well, Cheryl didn't have an injured party, but the state still continued to come after her. So our verdict came in on a common law court, and the judges, the police officers, and it had turned out that the property that she owns is right next door out in the country to a place called Sozo's Rehab Center. And it's a men's rehab facility for drug abuse. And they have been buying up the land that's all around there. So the only thing that's left on all of that land that's there on this whole street is Cheryl and her acres and another family and their acres. And so all of this has been found that it was a land grab because the judges and the cops all put in, they assign the people to go to the drug rehabs. You see what I'm saying? And it's all a big ordeal. And so we were able to, or that was able to be proven in the case. Well, during that time, the verdict on this came in on February 22nd. It was filed on the circuit court docket with all of the cases. And those judges had put in a arrest warrant for her And her house was raided by about 30 officers in. Now she's an innocent woman. She's never harmed anyone or done anything to hurt anyone. And her minor child, one of her minor children, 16-year-old son, was at home, and they were raided with military style weapons, with cops, machine guns, all heavy artillery gear, busted in her door with a battering ram at her house. And she's been in jail now for 36 days.
Oh
We've
my
now
gosh.
taken the case. We've now taken the case to the Supreme Court. And so our case is now before the Arkansas Supreme Court as our own court for them to recognize the verdict on of our court. And right now, so we got a message from the Supreme Court today that they are now looking at our motions to see if they'll hear our case. And so it's not on appeal because we already have a verdict. So we're going in on what's called a writ of prohibition, which is an extraordinary writ that you can come in if you are a superior court and ask that the Supreme Court compel or force the verdict onto the lower courts. And so that's what we're doing on
Wow.
that.
That's a lot. Um,
It is a lot.
yeah. So can you catch us up on the relevancy, what's behind it, the precedents, all of that, and the efforts. What's your focus? What are y'all trying to get accomplished? All that.
Okay, so what we're trying to get accomplished is, so the courts that are set up right now, we have constitutional guarantees and rights as American state nationals, as we the people, we have the right to travel and not be hindered. We have the right to a trial by jury. We have the right to bear arms. We have the right to freedom of speech. So, I mean, we have all of these rights and these natural rights that are given by God. And what we've learned is that the way our founding fathers set things up with the federal republic that was run by we the people, our courts, and a whole leg of our government run by we the people, as an overwatch to the other two, which is the British territorial government and also the municipal government, watch to them. And our courts, our courts with our grand juries have the ability to stop corruption when it's seen in our land jurisdiction courts, whether it's officials, whether it's government, whether it's corporations, whether it's chemtrails in the sky. I mean, poisoning our water. It doesn't matter what the issue is within each and every one of our states. The power that we have as a people is in our courts. And so that is our goal as a country. Of course, when we've spoken last time and other times about American State National, we're in every single state. We have all of our states set up, and they're all in process. All 50 states are in process of setting up their courts, setting up their militias, and setting up their international business pillar, and then their assemblies are all already set up. So each state is in the process of doing that.
Once you get this done, and I mean the fighting in the Supreme Court, what is the purpose of and the point, and what are you trying to get established with the outcome
I'm
from this?
trying. Well, we're trying to get our courts established in the outcome, because at this moment they're not recognized. The lower courts in the district and the circuit courts in the counties don't even recognize that they exist. And
Uh-huh.
we have, through the case called Ex parte Milligan, which we had this in the last show that you and I talked about. Ex parte Milligan was the case that happened right after the Civil War, where a guy who was just a regular, citizen, and he ended up getting thrown in jail as some sort of military combatant, and that wasn't true. And they were going to execute him. And he didn't even he was in a military tribunal, and he was supposed to get a common law trial. And anyway, they ended up he ended up not dying and getting out of jail and not found guilty of any crime whatsoever. But he had gotten put into a military tribunal and should never be in a military tribunal.
Hmm.
And that's how it is for us today. The courts that we have in our cities, these district and circuit courts are not common law courts. They are trafficking and stealing the money from we the people. I mean, it is really bad. They're still, I mean, just ticketing and traffic tickets. It's a multi-billion dollar business that they get off of these cops just giving people tickets for stuff that where no harm or injury has been committed against another individual, and there's no damage or stealing of property. We shouldn't be fined for all of those things if we're not harming anyone. And so
Has this happened in any other state yet? And as you know
no,
what? No,
we
it
are the
hasn't.
first case. We are the first major. We are the first court case that has taken it this far. We are the so this is
Okay.
the very first court case to establish, or I shouldn't say establish, I should say reconstruct and reestablish our common law courts, because they were here. They just were never reconstructed after the Civil War. And so now we're resetting them up as a nation.
Okay. Um, Anything else you want to go into on this before we start talking about the orphanages and the school?
Yes, I would just like to say if anyone out there would like to know more about this, you can go to thearkanssasassembly.net, thearkanssasassembly.net. That is our state website for American State National. And you can click on the Arkansas Common Law Court tab at the top. Once you click on that, Cheryl Corvell's case will come up, and you will see her court of record, which is all of her testimony and all of the exhibits there and packets, and you can read through all of it. You'll also see the entire verdict there, and you can read the entire verdict there, and see everything that has progressed with this case, so you can be familiar with it as well and see exactly how innocent people are being railroaded through the judicial system here in America. And we also have a YouTube channel called the Arkansas Assembly. And if you want to check out the case at the Supreme Court, it's at arcourts.gov. And you click on search cases, and Cheryl Corvell's Supreme Court case number is CR-24-193. And when you put that in, you will be able to read everything that's been put on the Supreme Court docket. And so if we don't get the answers we want here at this Supreme Court, then we will be immediately taking it to Washington, D.C., to the District Court in Washington, D.C., at the Supreme Court there, to make our case.
When is the case going to the court?
It's already in court. It's been in the court the last. So how it works is, so when we filed the case and we put all of our motions in and we put in our writ, then it goes to the Attorney General for 10 days. So the Attorney General had 10 days to look into the case and speak to it, and he has now turned that back in. And so now the judge, the Chief Justice, John Kemp, is now looking at it and reviewing the motions. So our motions have been submitted. And in one of those motions is the motion to release Cheryl from false imprisonment. And so that motion is in there to get her out of jail for false imprisonment. And so we have to wait to see whether they'll accept or deny our motions before we move forward. It takes about 4 to 6 weeks for them to actually review the whole case before we get a decision.
Okay, and you said uh, she just, all this got just submitted, right?
Well, we submitted it on the 20th of March, but it's just now getting to the point to where it can be looked at by the
Yeah,
Supreme
things
Court.
all take a long time with the courts. Um, so yeah, so you'll have to definitely keep us up with the situation, and I'm guessing that the other states are kind of watching to see what happens, huh?
That's exactly what's happening. They're all watching to see what's happening. And then Anna Marie Reisinger, she is our fiduciary for the United States in the at the federation level, on a federal level, and then our head of state, James Belcher, and their whole team are also all watching this, because if it leaves Arkansas, see, jurisdictionally, the federation can't actually come in and interfere too much because we are in our own state. And so, but once if it moves to the Supreme Court, then the federation will then become involved because it's actually at their level.
All right, all right, very cool. Let me check the chat. But in the process, let's go ahead and go into um, what we're trying to do with regard to the Kayumba and the orphanage there, and the movement towards trying to set up the schooling and where we are with that. And so, if you'll give an update on the situation there.
Okay, so as everyone knows, we've been supporting Robert and the orphanage there at KRCH for many, many, many years. And anyway, so it was this time last year. It was actually spring, summer last year when we did a show and kicked off trying to get for the school, because their school fees, the school fees always are so much, and it's hard. It's hard to raise that type of money. So, what we were trying to do was build a school so that they could also build an income, um, to getting students in the community in as well. And so anyway, the land was gotten through you guys last year, and that was all purchased. And where we are now is they had to go through, now the last time you and I talked, all the credentials that they had to get, that stuff was done. All of the stuff that they have to do with the ministry, the um, Ministry of Education, they call it something different there. My mind just went blank of what it is, but that they're in compliance with all of the ministry licensing and all of that stuff. And so um, they they are ready to, at this point, we can get buildings and get them one at a time. Now, the last I checked, the buildings on that, it was it $10,000 a piece for the building and the electricity and that to run, to get ran to it. Um, and we were gonna, if we needed to just do, they'd come in like trailers. They're not really trailers. Look at them more as like the metal buildings, like the metal shops or whatever that we build. They're more like those. They're like the metal shop buildings, and they'll have those put in. Each classroom will be one, and so we can actually build them one at a time depending on how funds come in, or if we get them all at once, we can get them all at once. But I think what we were looking at on this fundraiser amount was that it would end up being, with this, with the buildings and the electricity and everything, if we did all of them, it would be about $40,000 to $50,000 for this second phase.
Yeah, and it's a lot, but we're going to start because they want us to have two buildings and then one for administrative, and so
Right.
that's why there's and 10,000 per unit um, is really not that bad in consideration as far as construction efforts, but um,
Well, that if I'm not mistaken, that included the electricity and all of the stuff that needed to be run to it. You know what I mean? It's not just the
Yeah.
building. That's with it ready to go.
Oh, and 7 minutes to freedom. I will get into that in the next hour. I'm going to go into all the enmity between the seed lines, but um, if you're new to this topic, there you can search. We have a whole playlist on the serpent seed, and I've done probably hundreds of shows on the topic, so you can check out all that. Um, and we've done shows even recently, like what was the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, and things of that nature. But anyways, and so with regard to the school, because now we're talking about the orphanage, and for those that don't know, um, we started a nonprofit in 2001 called Endeavor Freedom, and it was to help, people with disabilities, veterans in need, animals in need, widows, orphans, and people that were suffering and that needed assistance. And so all that was set up, thus the name Endeavor Freedom, to help people to be independent, to have their freedom to live free, that was the focus. So, anyways, when we started Sacred Word Publishing, we also decided to incorporate, as part of the mission, a 15% tithe to the nonprofit. And currently, we support 4 orphanages in different parts of the world: Uganda, Kenya, Myanmar, India. And so, and you can go to Endeavor Freedom Inc. or endeavorfreedom.org.com to see, and you can see the testimonies from the kids and the different people on the ground at the different orphanages that we have contact. And so, um, that is the focus. That's our efforts. That's what we're trying to do. And so last year, the listening audience and those that, if you don't know, uh, we were able to raise money to purchase was it 2.5 or 2 acres there in Kenya to actually start this process where we could, you know, build a school there. And then, as Kimberly said earlier, that would save on a lot of fees from just trying to send the kids to school. And it would also support the orphanage in that they would be able to um, cater to opening the school to the rest of the community and to invite people from abroad to come, and they would also support the orphanages with the fees. And that we are in the process of, working with the commission there in Kenya to set up and to get all of this rolling. And so, um, and can you give out the the website for the orphanage again, and also post it into the chat? But if you'll, like, say it, the address, so people that are listening that might check out the archives, they can find it later. And also, we will post it into the description for this show as well.
Okay. So it is Kayumba, um, Keumbu Rema, Rehema, children'shome.org. And so I'm going to go post that in the chat right now.
And as I said, we will also include it with the description for the show. And then at the top of the hour, we'll go into the enmity between the seed lines and get into all that. And then I'll be taking questions too. So after the first break, which we're only going to take the top of the hour break, um, then we'll go into, the this other topic. But um, I do plan on donating myself, and I'm gonna match a certain amount for those that have a willingness. And also, we do have the nonprofit set up so that if you are wanting and willing, and if you donate, you can also receive. And you'll have to also remind us, because um, they only send out the tax write-offs for a certain amount. But if you request, they'll send one to anybody that has supported the nonprofits. But um, just to give you a little bit of background, a long time ago, I had spoke to Robert, and at that time they were wanting to raise money to purchase meals to feed the orphans that were under their care. And at that time, I had suggested that he maybe get chickens, or some kind of animals, so that they could multiply them, also collect the eggs, and also barter, with the chickens that they're able to grow, and that would create a source of income and create uh, sustainable, efforts moving forward. That's that whole theme of, in the Bible, that you teach a man to fish. And so that was our focus. And Kimberly was instrumental in assisting the orphanage to raise money to get and to put in and install a well. And currently, that is one of the places that the whole community can go to gather and find clean water, which is what a huge deal that is. I mean, because I see so many people in places where they're living, and they are dumping their trash and their sewage and waste directly into the water that they then have to drink from, and that causes dysentery and other um, sicknesses, illnesses, and it's just a bad situation. So let me give you a chance to kind of comment on your relationship and where they are, and then we'll see about organizing a particular time, because we do want to try to get this process moving and going forward, so that we can start in the construction. And because that's going to take a while, but you know, uh, we get to it as we can. Kimberly.
Right. We just take it one step at a time. And,
Right.
every time Creator has been faithful. I mean, from the moment, I guess it's been so long now. I'm sitting here trying to think when Robert and I first, it was 2013, I think, is when Robert and I first met, and they were struggling as such a small orphanage and starving. And when my mom and I met him and began to come to their aid. And yeah, we built the well in 2017 is when we built the well. It might have been 2018. It took us about a year project. There was a lot of steps involved in that project. It was very difficult to try to build a well and being in America when you've got contractors and stuff in Kenya. And so between the project managers and me and Robert, and he's having to speak in Swahili, and here I am in English. And so anyway, that was, wow, that was a project. But speaking of the well, this past week, I did get a phone call from Robert this past week. They had bad electrical storms
Oh.
this past week, and it hit their solar panels. So the way the well works, it's a huge well and it's tall. It's like 2 or 3 stories tall, the big tank, that because it takes it, services their whole community.
Uh-huh.
And the pump part of it is separate. And so it has the solar panels, 12 to, I think it's 12 or 17, 12 to 17 solar panels that are all paneled, and they were all hit with lightning, and the pump was hit with lightning. And so they were trying to assess the damage on that, and I think he said it ended up at like $7,000 or something. But at this moment, right now, it's out of commission, and so the whole community is having to go and get creek water right now. And that
Oh my
just happened
goodness.
this week.
Well, that's not a good thing.
No, that's not good at all. But we'll get it fixed. I mean, we'll do what it might take us some time, but we'll get it fixed so that that whole community will have water again, because they've all gotten used to it. They've had so much malaria and stuff. Well, the whole community has been malaria, pretty much mostly malaria free, um, since the well.
Yeah, this is first I've heard of this. This is unfortunate. I'll definitely um pray for, restoration and remedy to that whole situation. But um as I said, for those that would be interested in supporting us and what we're doing and trying to assist with um Robert and the orphanage in Kenya. I'm gonna donate myself, so I'm gonna match donations too, and I haven't decided on what that amount will be, but um, we'll see how the fundraising efforts go, and then I'll definitely update and keep people abreast of what's going on, what we're trying to do, and then we'll do a follow up and maybe even if we can, because Robert's in Kenya, but maybe we can organize a time that he can join us on the broadcast. It's probably early morning for him right now. I'm not exactly positive, but
Yeah, I
we'll
think
try to
they're
get
nine
all this.
hours ahead of us.
They're what?
I think they're 9 hours ahead of us.
Oh, okay. So yeah, so early morning. Um,
But he'll usually get on as long as he has advance notice on when we're going to be there. He'll make sure to get on with us.
okay. All right. Well, we'll definitely try to get him on too, and he can give us a direct kind of what's up with the situation. We'll also ask him about the well and what's going on with that. But Robert's a really good man and worthy of supporting because I know a lot of people like me initially was very weary and I didn't want to support mega churches or big churches or organizations or anything like that. I'm the kind of person that I like to look into the person's eye and give directly, or like people that I meet just during the day that are needing money or asking for money. And, I like when a situation unfolds and I have the opportunity and I feel like God has placed that person into my life for me to be able to assist and to have this opportunity to assist. And I think that when those things come into our lives, that we should really take advantage of that because I think it's more on us that the Most High has established the law that you reap what you sow, and that we are supposed to support others by giving and supporting others in that way, paying it forward because we are greatly blessed, especially in this country and with so many suffering all over the world. I know things are tough here, and things are with inflation and the prices and the costs, all that skyrocketing going up. That things are definitely tougher on people, and a lot of people are suffering. But I definitely think that we are still blessed with so much bounty, and that here in this country we have the opportunity to to be entrepreneurs, to create businesses and to, have incredible dreams, goals, hopes, and the ability to pursue that, the pursuit, of happiness and all of that. I mean, we are so, so blessed. And so definitely, I think we have a responsibility to assist, especially where we see others that are in need. But Kimberly, I'll give you a chance. We got like 8 minutes remaining. We'll give you an opportunity to, whatever you'd like to say, comment, then you can share your contact and your information, and also you could, you know, just revisit the whole situation with the courts and what y'all are doing there, and then we'll go to break.
Okay. Well, again, um, just want to let you know, and that if you see what's going on in our country and you see the two-tiered justice system that we have in place, and you see the corruption that is on every angle, and you would like to learn more about how we got in this position, um, and exactly what does it mean to reconstruct your government, you can reach us at the arkansas assembly.net, and there is a contact us there, and it will email us here in Arkansas directly. And you can also go check out our YouTube channel, and that's where we have training on common law and how to set up those courts and to know more about common law. And um, I just think that this is an exciting time that we're living in right now. Here in Arkansas, where I'm at, it's jam packed because we are in the eclipse, and it's 100% totality where we live on the
Oh,
8th.
wow, amazing.
And so we are at the what where I live is 100% totality. So the traffic is really bad. There's people from all over the country out here in Hot Springs and Hot Springs Village. And so everybody's preparing for that. And I just think there's a lot of things in our world that are ramping up, and they try to fearmonger and all of these things, but I think that we are living in exciting times because I think that our best days are ahead of us and not behind us. And I think that we, the people, are going to take back our country, and we are going to put it back the way it was supposed to be, with righteousness, and with doing to others as you would have them do to you, and with justice back um, in our country, where the criminals don't just keep criminalizing and innocent people keep going to jail and getting in trouble. I mean, we've seen this country just go downhill, and so I just believe that our better days are ahead. And as far as the orphanage, I know for myself, when we partnered with Robert a long time ago, in 2013, there is just nothing like all of these children, and partnering with all of these kids. When they started, they had like 7 kids, when we first started with them in this orphanage, and now we have 72 kids in one orphanage. And Robert and Terry have built such a strong community there. And when we brought water, there's a lot of false god worship that goes on in Kenya and a lot of these other countries, with different false gods and different types of things. And so, um, as far as being a believer and stuff, they would get ridiculed and different things. But when the well came in, and there was water for the community, and that miracle was given to us by Creator to provide that, it really started to change a lot of the community. And a lot of these guys who were persecuting Robert and persecuting them have now come back around and are now in the church, or in the community, and have turned their lives and their families around. So there's just so much of a testimony, besides just feeding, and helping with the orphans. They're making an impact there where they are. And to me, it's just great to be a part of that. And as far as building a school, um, it's been so hard as far as having to pay school fees, because in Africa, in order to go, elementary school is supported by the government, but the middle school and high schools, they're not supported by the government. And so, well, I don't mean not supported, but they're not paid for by the government. So you have to actually pay for your kids to go to school, and it's mandatory. And so when you have an orphanage, that orphanage is responsible to pay those fees, and they're not cheap, to have those students in school. And so having a school and utilizing it and having it where other students can come in and they pay the fees will help the orphanage students to be able to offset that, so that it will help to bring an income there for them.
Yeah, that would be a great, blessing for not only them but the community and the kids. It'll be a win-win situation for everybody. For those that are like myself that are looking for a good effort to get behind and to support, and what's better than assisting an orphanage where you have young ones, and there's the community like Robert and his wife and the other elders that are around that are supporting. They struggle because they give so much to the children that that's their focus, and they are the mother and the father of the community of that orphanage, and those 70 kids, they are their kids. So um, what better thing to do than to support somebody? And as you said, the paganism, the voodoo, the false religions, and the alternative, the people being led astray. There's a lot of that going on in Africa. I mean, here in America too, the occult is, uh, gaining momentum, and a lot of people are finding themselves involved. They are worshiping the false gods. I've seen even that CERN is trying to open up a gateway to invite these Sumerian gods in from Enki and Lil and all that on it. Uh, so the distraction, the serpent, that ancient dragon, who deceiveth the whole world. We need to support people that are trying to tell the truth, plant the truth, and raise children on that truth. And what great lights upon the hill they will be. It's the same thing that my son and Joy are doing in Myanmar with the Endeavor Freedom Orphanage that we started there, and that this is a Christian community that's in and surrounded by Buddhists and others, and they are the like the soul seed, the spot for the faith, and they are doing well, and so we want to continue to support them. And Robert and anybody else that is, trying to do the work, support the kingdom, support the ministry, support the children, support the widows and the orphans and all those that are in need. And that's what we were instructed and told to do, anyways. But final comment from you, Kimberly, and thank you again for joining us this evening. And then when we come back from break, we're going to go into this topic on the enmity between the seedlines.
Well, I just want to say thank you. Thank you again, Zen, for getting us on so that we could give you an update. And we look forward to getting back on with you again with Robert and to get an update with what's going on there in Africa. And I want to go ahead and give you the Kayumba Rema Children's Home. It's KEUMBUREHEMA children'shome.org. And I did put it in the YouTube chat. And then the arkansasassembly.net is our website for the assembly.
All right. We appreciate you. And yeah, if you would just let Robert know that we are starting in the process and hopefully we can get something going on the ground down there. But again, we just want to, we thank all of you. Thank everybody for joining us in advance on these efforts. And we appreciate all of you. And I do want to give a shout out to Jim and Joanne. We really appreciate uh, you and the way that you assisted and helped us previously, and everybody, George and Sheila and everybody. I mean, all of you are such good people. Ren, uh, we'll be right back. Thanks, Kimberly. We'll be right back in about 4 minutes and we'll get into it. Be blessed. Hold on, everyone.
As a bookstore for truth seekers, it's our goal to make ancient manuscripts which were once held captive by secretive institutions available for public consideration. In our generation, where wisdom has increased as Daniel the prophet foretold, we have access to many of the testimonies our early church brethren were persecuted for preserving. After being hidden for centuries, these manuscripts have been leaked from various sources throughout the earth, and it's our goal to gather these sources into printable form to make available for all who seek the ancient way. If you're looking to deepen your studies of the biblical narrative, find these ancient manuscripts and more at sacredwordpublishing.com. Your partnership with Sacred Word Publishing goes further than the publishing of ancient manuscripts and weekly video content.
You also make a huge impact across the earth in orphanages in Myanmar, India, Uganda, and Kenya.
Your support is crucial for the development of the ecclesia of real truth seekers.
We thank you for joining us in hosting Secrets Revealed, Momentary Zen, the Digital Readers Club, Ask Me Anything series, and other shows that have helped lead so many to the truth of salvation.
become even more involved, please visit patreon.com/sacredwordpublishing, where you can partake in exclusive, interactive, patron-only content and help us continue shining the light of love in this darkened world.
And have shared with each other and one another. And this is one of those things that we're going to get into and talk about. The enmity between the bloodlines and the seed lines, and the fact that there is a physical bloodline, children, lineage here that is connected to, not only connected to Satan, ye are of your father the devil, but they are also the enemies of the sons of Adam, the children of light. They are the seed of the serpent, the sons of Belial, the children of perdition, and they have been for a very, very long time focused on decimating the truth, hiding the truth, uh, misconstruing it, and then sharing it in a way that causes confusion. Thank you, Sherry. She's posted the link to the Enmity Between the Seed Lines, which is the great contest too. And that is the book if you want to know more about this. And as 7 minutes asked previously about explaining, as far as serpent seed and the topic of the enmity between the seed of the woman and the seed of the serpent. I'm not going to go into all of that here. I'm going to talk about the enmity. But I've done many, many shows. As I said, there's a whole entire playlist on the serpent seed. Dr. Joy and I have done numerous shows on this topic. I've done many shows with a lot of people that have come to similar discernment on this issue. And even though, a lot of people hate it and they deny it and don't want to talk about it, they are still even doing shows about, the children of the devil, the seed of the serpent. And so, when you really, really look at the issue, in my opinion, it's undeniable, because you get into the Matthew 13, the parable of the tares of the field, and it's clearly explained, it's undeniable. The enemy that sowed the tares is the devil. He is the father of the tares. Cain, the progenitor of the tares, he is and was of the wicked one. That word of meaning child, descendant, progeny of. So we're going to get into that. And after I do the reading, I will check the chat. But, I see that there is a lot of confusion, and there are people that, like with the story of the Testament of Moses that is on Netflix right now, even though they do a really good job of, talking about and bringing forth the story of Moses, I think that they did a good job on that. Still, the world and they do not understand that there are these two bloodlines, and because of that, you have to understand that there is these two bloodlines in order to make sense of why God brought judgment, Passover, on the Egyptians. Because, as I'm going to explain it, the Egyptians, they were Canaanites, they were Hamites. The children of Ham was appointed and given the area and the region around Africa by Noah. But remember, Ham was a child from his second marriage, and Ham, was um, born from Noah and Nama, the sister of Tubal-Cain, who was his twin. And so she was the seed of the serpent. I covered all this previously, and that the seed of the serpent was given continuance, and that Noah was instructed to take Nama as a wife in order to preserve the serpent seed through the flood. And that is indeed what happened. But in regard to the land of promise, we're going to I'm going to share with you a passage from chapter 6 of the Keber Nagas, which, for those that don't know, the Ethiopians are said to be some of the oldest Christians, dating back to King Solomon, that the Queen of Sheba had his firstborn son, Menelik, who was looked like spitting image of Solomon, from what I understand, according to the narrative, the story. And he was instructed to take the Ark of the Covenant back with him. Solomon gave him all the firstborn of his court, all of his counselors and all of his advisors, gave him their firstborn, and they went back with him and established um, a similar style government and ministry, priesthood, as he witnessed his father Solomon had established in Israel. And so, and the Egyptians have a canon that is in excess of 80 to 100 books. And so, they include a lot of the Apocrypha, like the Jubilees, the Book of Enoch, Jasher, things like that. And they have other manuscripts that are not found anywhere else. So, like the Keber Nagas, which means the glory of kings, and it is one of the most revered Ethiopic manuscripts in Ethiopia because it tells the story of Solomon and Sheba and Menelik and how all that came to pass. But anyways, this passage is very interesting in regard to what we're going to go into. It's chapter 6 concerning the sin of Cain. It says, "And that accursed man Cain, the murderer of his brother, multiplied evil, and his seed did likewise, and they provoked God to wrath with their wickedness. They had not the fear of God before their eyes, and they never kept in mind that he had created them. And they never prayed to him, and they never worshiped him, and they never called upon him, and they never rendered service to him in fear. Nay, they ate and they drank and they danced and they played upon stringed instruments and sang lewd songs thereto, and they worked uncleanness without law, without measure, and without rule. And the wickedness of the children of Cain multiplied until at length, in the greatness of their filthiness, they introduced the seed of the ass into the mare, and the mule came into being, which God had not commanded. Even like those who give their children who are believers upon those who deny God, and their offspring become the seed. The filthy Gomorrites, one half of them being of good and one half of them of evil seed. And as for those who do this wickedness, their judgment is ready and their error is lasting." Um, that is not the passage that I was. Let me continue. Now Noah was a righteous man. He feared God and kept the righteousness and the law which his fathers had declared unto him. Now Noah was the 10th generation from Adam, and he kept in remembrance and did what was good, and he preserved his body from fornication. And he admonished his children, bidding them not to mingle with the children of Cain, the arrogant tyrant, the divider of the kingdom, who walked in the counsel of the devil, who maketh evil to flourish, and he taught them everything that God hated. Pride, boastfulness of speech, self-adulation, calumniation, false accusation, and the swearing of false oaths. And besides those things, in the wickedness of their uncleanness, which was unlawful and against rule, man wrought pollution with man, and women worked with women, the abominable thing. I think it's either this passage or the next one. I'm looking for the passage where the Canaanites usurped the land from the children of Shem. Ah, here it is. Okay, yeah, this is the passage, so let's read this. Okay. And then Noah, the righteous man, died, and Shem reigned in wisdom and righteousness, for he was blessed by Noah, saying, Be good to thy brother. And to him he said, Be servant to thy brother. Remember the prophecy that when Ham saw the nakedness of his father, the result of that was the birth of Canaan. And because God had blessed Ham, Noah could not curse him, but cursed Canaan, who was the result of Ham seeing the nakedness of his father, meaning that he had sexual relationships with his mother, and Canaan was the birth of Nama and Ham, both of whom were the serpent seed and the children of the serpent. So, and he said unto Japheth, Be thou servant to Shem, my heir, and be thou subject unto him. And again after the flood, the devil, our enemy, did not cease from his hostility against the children of Noah, but stirred up Canaan, the son of Ham, and he became the violent tyrant or usurper who rent the kingdom from the children of Shem. Now they had divided the earth among them, and Noah had made them swear by the name of his God that they would not encroach on each other's boundaries, and would not eat the beast that had died of itself or had been rent by wild animals, and that they would not cultivate harlotry against the law, lest God should again become angry with them and punish them with a flood. And as for Noah, he humbled himself and offered up sacrifice, and he cried out and groaned and wept. And God held converse with Noah, who said unto him, If thou wilt destroy the earth a second time with a flood, blot thou me out with those who are to perish. And God had said unto him, I will make a covenant with thee, that thou shalt tell thy children, they shall not eat the beast that hath died of itself, or that hath been torn by wild beasts, and they shall not cultivate harlotry against the law. And I, on my part, covenant that I will not destroy the earth a second time with a flood, and that I will give unto thy children winter and summer, seed time and harvest, autumn and spring. So again, the most important part, and one that is not covered a lot or spoke a lot about, the regular Canaanite, the Canaan. And again, after the flood, the devil, our enemy, did not cease from his hostility against the children of Noah, but stirred up Canaan, the son of Ham, and he became the violent tyrant or usurper who rent the kingdom from the children of Shem. And so you see that the land that is called Canaan after the usurper. This is the ancient land of what we know to be Palestine, which Palestine is a word that comes from the word Philistine, which the Philistines were the enemies of Israel, and they were the ones that were, Goliath and Gath, his four brothers. They were the arch enemies, the nemesis of Saul and the Israelites when God had established them. And so that's why the Most High made a covenant with Abraham. And he knew all this was going to happen. Again, God knows the end from the beginning. And he told Abraham that his seed would be in bondage for 400 years, which we see that time starts with the birth of uh, Israel, or Isaac, who is the seed of promise. And Ishmael was the seed of the serpent, and that the Ishmaelites are even now, at war with the Israelites, the Hebrews, and that this is a process of, even what's going on, that I will make Jerusalem a cup of trembling amongst the nations. That those that don't understand that the land of Canaan was usurped, that it was given to Shem and his seed, but Canaan, and again, Ham is a child, seed of the serpent, and his son Canaan, it was predominantly serpent seed, being born of Nama and Ham. That's more than 51%, because both of them, Nama was pure, she was 100% seed of the serpent, and Ham was 50%. So what does that make Canaan, like 3/4 or something of that nature? But anyways, and so when the Israelites were freed from the bondage of Egypt, the Egyptians were, and even the word Egypt comes from Chem, and Chem is a word that came from the name Ham, Chem, and so the land of Egypt is known as the land of Chem, the land of Ham, and also it was called in ancient times Mizraim, which that was a daughter of Cush, I believe. That writing is in the writings of Abraham. And so, anyways, so what a lot of people don't understand about the Israelites and God when he freed them from Egypt, and the whole theme of, the little girl that asked the question to her father, who was like a rabbi or some kind of teacher. And most teachers, they don't know this. They don't know about the seed of the woman and the seed of the serpent. They believe that we are all the same people, and we are not. We are not all the same people. We are not all the same bloodline. Even Daniel recognizes this when he says they will try to intermingle themselves amongst the seed of men. Who is he talking about? He's talking about um, the giants and the children of the offspring of the Nephilim. All right, I am getting to. All right, we have a question. Seeker of truth. Do you have a timeline that's showing everything you have researched, learned, and how it is connected? Hmm. You mean like a timeline that writes out all the years and stuff? No, I don't believe I've ever done a particular timeline like that. But when it comes to the story and all the generations and the enmity as it plays out, even post flood, all that is in the great contest too. The enmity between the seed lines. And, because you have that enmity beginning in Genesis 3:15, where God says to the serpent after Adam and Eve are beguiled by the serpent, and they eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. They fall, losing their bright nature. They are removed from paradise. Excuse me. And Eve is, said that she's going to have to give birth in sorrow. She's going to bring forth children. So that enmity beginning with Abel and Cain, who was of that wicked one. All right, I'm going to take some water. I'll be right back. So Cain, who was of that wicked one, he killed his half-brother Abel. And so Seth was his replacement. And it tells us that Seth was in the likeness, in the similitude of Adam, whereas Cain was not. And because Cain murdered Abel, again, Sheth, whose name means compensation, substitution, and replacement, he was given to Adam and Eve 130 years later. Then we have that enmity continuing between Ishmael and Isaac. And that war is ongoing. The Arabs and the Hebrews, that is an ongoing kind of battle, contest, war. And then we also have the war between Jacob and Esau, which is odd because the Isaac and Ishmael, they're born of different mothers, but they have the same father. But then with Jacob and Esau, they have the same mother, the same father. They were twins, but yet Esau is considered to be serpent seed. And so, and if you want to know more about this story, you can find great detail in a manuscript called The Writings of Abraham, which we have in a book called The Book on the Order of the Ancients. You can find that as well. It goes into great detail on how the serpent seed was given continuance. Because remember, when Christ was speaking about the enemy that snuck into the garden that sowed the tares, he said, let both grow together until the time of the end. And at the time of the end, he would send his angels forth as reapers to gather the tares for burning and the wheat for preservation. So this war would be ongoing, would continue, and would go through the time of the end, which I believe we are there. We are that generation. That fig tree generation, we are at the end. We're just waiting for the Antichrist to come forth. And then, of course, we know the Messiah comes thereafter. And that the two witnesses come, Enoch and Elijah, to convict the Antichrist, because he is a false Christ, and he will make war against the saints. Michigan's Thumb asks, do you know why the serpent seed had to be preserved through the flood? Yeah, absolutely, because God gave Satan a chance also he gave him 7,000 years to establish and to attempt to try to establish what is his efforts in being like the Most High. He said, I want to be like the Most High. I will establish my throne above the stars and the clouds of God, establish my seat in the sides of the north above the mount of the congregation. which is where the portal, the ladder, Jacob's ladder, and the portal for the angels to go into heaven and into Sheol is located, which is at the North Pole, the center of what is the vaulted dome of the earth. And so in the war between these two bloodlines, the devil's children and God's children, would have to play out over the 6,000 years. That's why God preserved Cain and the giants through the flood. And that's why Christ said, I will preserve, let both grow together until the time of the end. And so you can't have a judgment and you can't have a conviction against people until they have the opportunity to play out their lifetimes, to live out their lifetimes, to have, one lifetime in the immortal journey of soul, and then judgment, as it says in Hebrews. And so it's because the Most High had given the devil and the angels that rebelled with him against Yahuwah, given them this 7,000 years of the Second World Age to attempt their efforts in diverting the worship to themselves, in stealing the true worship of Yahuwah and Elohim to themselves. And then they would bring forth their Antichrist, establish the beast kingdom, and then the stone that the builders rejected would come, smash those kingdoms, and establish an eternal rule. That's what the scriptures say. That is where prophecy is leading us. So all that had to play out. I mean, yeah, God could have wiped Satan out at the very beginning and saved us all of this. But this world age is giving us, the fallen angels and humanity, which we are, free will to do it ourselves in the way that we want to, establishing our own kingdoms to rule. But then we would learn why we need a sovereign God, a most high, a compassionate, loving God to lead us and to rule over all things. Otherwise, we would establish chaos and destruction and annihilation as we see surrounding us. And so that's why it had to be this way. Thank you, Truth Seeker. Yeah, I need to take more time to take water, and I'll do so. Hello, Stephanie. Good to see you, sister. That's right. And whereas thou sawest iron mixed with miry clay, they shall mingle themselves with the seed of men. But they shall not cleave one to another, even as iron is not mixed with clay. And we're seeing a lot now. Because also remember that there's a reason why God, Elohim, Yahuwah, and Yahushua, and the Ruach HaKodesh says of them that they are the seed of the serpent, that they are a den of vipers, that Cain was born with seraphic appearance, and that he was like the angelic ones and not like the earthly ones. Meaning that he was reptilian in nature, and that he had this seraphic appearance. Oh yes, Sherry asked, didn't Lamech ask the Most High to forgive him and let his seed line continue also? And yes, we find this in the writings of Abraham, and I've read this story numerous times. It's very lengthy. It's very intricate, very detailed. And I've done shows here also on how the seed of the serpent survived the flood, and you can find that. And I share in those shows, those stories from the writings of Abraham, and I read and go into great detail on all that. So if you want to know more about what I'm talking about and what Sherry is bringing up, alluding to here, you can look to that for further information. All right, let me continue. And so you were asking about the story of, where the serpent seed is situated, located, found. And it's clear. It's found in Genesis 3:15. The entire, story of Genesis 3, Genesis 4, Genesis 5 even covers the the enmity between the seed of the woman and the seed of the serpent. All right, let me take water once again. So, and I'm going to read the story from the Targum, which again, the Targum is the word in Aramaic for um, translation. Also, I had a question. Somebody emailed me a question, so let me go ahead and respond to that. And it was about why I referenced the Messiah, the Savior, as Yahushua. And this individual had come to discernment on, that, and wanted to also um, call the Messiah by his true name. And he had asked me, why I didn't call him Jesus. Even though I do think, Jesus is in the English, it has been shown to have power and authority. And so, but in regard to the word Jesus, it comes from the Hebrew word Yahushua, which Yahushua means Yah's salvation. And we are told in Isaiah that, Emmanuel, God with us, that um, Christ would be the Savior Messiah, and that his name, Yahushua, it's where we get the English word Joshua, Yahushua. Joshua also was a type and a shadow of Yahushua. And so, anyways, Yahushua is the original Hebrew. And the person also asked me about the word Yeshua and where that comes from. Yeshua is the Aramaic word for the Savior Messiah, the name, the Aramaic name for the Savior. But I'm going back even further. I want to go to the Hebrew. And so Yahushua, Yah salvation, we see that even the name of the Father, Yod-He, Vod-He, the Tetragrammaton, Yod-He, Vod-He, YHVH, that this is the word that people get Yahuwah, Yahweh, even when they translated the Y into J, Jehovah, Yahweh. I mean, a lot of people speak and reference the Father in different ways according to the Bibles they've been brought up on, the environments, where they grew up, where they learned scriptures, and the people that they were around. DR9 asks, are the Europeans the lost tribes of Israel? Well, yeah, some of them, but the lost tribes are scattered everywhere. The indigenous Americans are also part of the lost tribes. People spread in the islands, the Caribbeans. I mean, everywhere. The lost tribes are everywhere. They're scattered all over, everywhere. And so, okay, now let me go back into. And so in the Targum in Genesis 3:15 it says, and the woman said to the serpent, from the rest of the fruits of the trees of the garden we have power to eat, but of the fruit of the tree which is in the midst of the garden the Lord hath said, you shall not eat of it, nor approach it lest you die. um, Now, going to Genesis 3:6, we'll start there. And the woman beheld Samael, the angel of death, and was afraid, yet she knew that the tree was good to eat, and that it was medicine for the enlightenment of the eyes, and a desirable tree, by means of which to understand. I covered just a week ago in a show that we did, what was the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Now, I believe that the fruit was a real fruit, and that it had hallucinogenic properties, and that this is why it says in the Targum it was medicine for the enlightenment of the eyes and a means by which to understand. And then it says, and the eyes of both were enlightened, and they knew that they were naked, divested of the purple robe in which they had been created. And after they ate the fruit, this is where the serpent beguiled, because they were transformed, they lost their bright nature, their genitals appeared. And I have an interesting passage that, okay, yes, it comes from the Quran. I'm not saying it's inspired, but it's intriguing as to what it says here. But before I read this verse, I want to read something from the first book of Adam and Eve. It says, because whereas they had hitherto been in the garden land, beautifully planted with all manner of trees, they now saw themselves in a strange land, which they knew not and had never seen. And because at that time they were filled with the grace of a bright nature, they had not hearts turned towards earthly things. Therefore had God pity on them, and when he saw them fallen before the gate of the garden, he sent his word unto Father Adam and Eve and raised them from their fallen state. And so they lost their bright nature, and they had never known about earthly things. So this is what it says in the Quran, chapter 20, verse 121 and 122. It says, then they both ate of that tree, and so their private parts appeared to them. And they began to stick on themselves the leaves from paradise for their covering. Thus did Adam disobey his Lord, so he went astray. Then his Lord chose him and turned to him with forgiveness and gave him guidance. And so, as I've been suggesting and as I've been relating, that when God said not to touch or eat of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, and the day that you eat or touch thereof, you shall die. Right? So when they touched it, they ate from this hallucinogenic plant. Their eyes were opened. They became enlightened. They were like the angels to know good and evil. But that's also when their genitals appeared. And the serpent beguiled them, impregnated Eve with Cain, Adam repeating the act, impregnated her with Abel. And then after they had, performed these actions, Eve was an adulteress. Remember, it says first adultery came into being, then murder. Then Adam, repeating the act, impregnated her with Abel, who was killed by his half brother Cain. And so then, after this occurred, after this happened, then we see in Genesis 3:15, in the Targum it says, "And I will put enmity between thee and the woman, and between the seed of thy son and the seed of her sons." And remember, the seed of thy son to the serpent. Who is thy son? Thy son is Cain. Cain, who was of the wicked one, right? And wherefore he killed his brother? Because his acts were evil. And then that's why it says, between the seed of thy son and the seed of her sons. Why her sons? Because Abel was killed by his half brother and had to be replaced with Sheth. And it was through Sheth that the children of Adam would be born and replicate. Then we go to Genesis 3:20. We see that Adam calls the name of his wife Hava, which means life giver, because she was the mother of all the living. This is what it says in the Targum. And Adam called the name of his wife Hava because she is the mother of all the children of men. And the Lord God made to Adam and to his wife vestures of honor from the skin of the serpent, which he had cast from him upon the skin of their flesh. Instead of that, adornment which had been cast away, and he clothed them. So he clothed them with the skin of the serpent, which was the flesh. And when you look at the skin at a microscopic level, it looks like serpent scales. I mean, that's just, it is what it is. But that's when the flesh came into being for them. And God said, had he kept the commandment which I pointed to him, he would have lived and subsisted as the tree of life forever. But now, because he hath not kept that which I prescribed, it is decreed against him that we keep him from the Garden of Eden before he reach forth his hand and take of the tree of life. For behold, if he eat therefore living, he will live and subsist forever. So he had made to dwell the glory of his Shekinah and the first, between the two cherubim before he created the world. So Adam was cast out. And the Lord God removed him from the Garden of Eden, and he went and dwelt on the Mount Moriah to cultivate the ground from which he had been created. And he drave out the man from thence where he had made to dwell. All right. So anyways, I didn't want to go into the story on the fruit, but I did because we have some newcomers here and I had to explain about it. And remember, New Jerusalem, the city of Christ, is in the heavens. It's above the vaulted dome of the earth. Currently, it will come down at the end of days when the heavens are opened up like a scroll. No, with regard to Genesis 4:1, because this is the kicker. This is the stickler for everybody. Everybody says, Oh, Genesis, it says, and Adam knew Eve, his wife, and she conceived and bare Cain and said, I've gotten a man from the Lord. And then she again bare his brother Abel. Um, okay, yeah, it says that, but what does it say in the older renditions, in the more ancient sources? In the Septuagint, it says the same thing. And Adam knew Eve, his wife, and she conceived and brought forth Cain and said, I have gained a man through God. And then she again bore his brother Abel. Let's see what the Targum says and how interesting what's been left out means so much. In the Targum in Genesis 4:1, which is the Aramaic translation of the Hebrew, it says, and Adam knew Hava, his wife, that word Hava meaning life giver, who had desired the angel. What? Who had desired the angel? What angel is that? Remember Genesis 3:6? The angel Samael, the viper of God, the angel of death, who beguiled Eve. So Hava, who had desired the angel, desired that angel? And she conceived and bare Cain, semicolon. And then she said, I have acquired a man from the angel of the Lord. And she added to bear from her husband Adam, his twin, even Abel. So her desiring the angel is what led to the conception of Cain. And that's why she said, I have acquired a man from the angel of the Lord. Now that is very interesting. And then when you go to Genesis 5, it tells us this. And again, I'm going to read from the Targum. I know we're quickly running out of time, but it says, and Adam knew his wife again at the end of the 130 years after Abel had been slain, and she bare a son and called his name Sheth. For she said, the Lord hath given me another son instead of Abel, whom Cain slew, and to Sheth also was born a son. And he called his name Enosh. That was the generation in whose days they began to err. And to make themselves, this is actually the first portion. This is the important part. Make themselves idols and surname their idols by the name of the word of the Lord. In Genesis 5, it says, this is the book of the genealogy of man. In the day that the Lord created man, in the likeness of the Lord he hath made him. Male and female he created them and blessed them in the name of his word. And he called their name man in the day they were created. And Adam lived 130 years and begat Sheth, who had the likeness of his image and of his similitude. For before had Hava born Cain, who was not like to him, and Abel was killed by his hand. And Cain was cast out, neither is his seed genealized in the book of the genealogy of Adam. But afterwards there was one born like him, and he called his name Sheth. Which again, the name Sheth means substitution, compensation, replacement. And so, again, it's clear, especially when you go to the oldest renditions of this story, that Cain was of the wicked one. And I've covered this so many times with so much information. And I talked about how it was that it was because the seed of the serpent, the children of Cain, were hybrid, that they were even able to intermingle with the angels that fell. I'll cover this story real quick and then we'll end with this. And that's why Genesis 6 even occurred. because it was the daughters of Cain that enticed the angels. Says this: Rabbi Meyer said the generation of Cain went about stark naked, men and women, just like the beasts, and they defiled themselves with all kinds of immorality. A man with his mother and his daughter, or the wife of his brother, or the wife of his neighbor in public and in the streets, with evil inclination which is in the thought of their heart. As it is said, and the Lord saw that the wickedness of man was great in the earth. The rabbi said that the angels who fell from their holy place in heaven saw the daughters of the generation of Cain walking about naked with their eyes painted like harlots, and they went astray after them, and they took wives from amongst them. As it is said, and the sons of Elohim saw the daughters of men that they were fair, and they took wives of all which they chose. One last passage. We'll end with this, and I'll check for questions. For thus they allured the watchers who were before the flood, for as they continually beheld them, they lusted after them, and they conceived the act in their mind, for they changed themselves into the shape of men and appeared to them when they were with their husbands. And the women, lusting in their minds after their forms, gave birth to giants, for the watchers appeared to them as reaching even unto heaven. The Testament of the 12 Patriarchs. Reuben. I'll read this last passage. This is from the Legends of the Jews. It says, she was as shameless as all the other descendants of Cain and as prone to bestial indulgences. Canaanite women and Canaanite men alike were in the habit of walking abroad naked, and they gave themselves up to every conceivable manner of lewd practices. Such were the women whose beauty and sensual charms tempted the angels from the path of virtue. The angels, on the other hand, no sooner had they rebelled against God and descended to earth than they lost their transcendental qualities and were invested with sublunary bodies, so that a union with the daughters of men became possible. The offspring of these alliances between the angels and the Canaanite women were the giants, known for their strength and their sinfulness, as their very nature, the Imam indicates, they inspired fear. All right. Let me check the chat. Again, I appreciate all of you and taking the time to be with us. 7 minutes just went into that whole spiel kind of for you. But anyways, check out the other programs. I go into great detail on this, especially when I cover it in Hebrew. This is a very important piece of information. This is the skeleton key for unlocking all of Scripture. Because this war between these bloodline elites is ongoing. They are the children of Cain in modern times. They are the synagogue of Satan who say they are Jews but are not. The Rothschilds, Jerusalem, Zionism, being a cup of trembling amongst the nations, that it would be a thorn in the side of the world, and that it would divide the world, and that it would lead to what would be Armageddon. And so this war between the bloodlines, the enmity between the bloodlines, is ongoing, and it will continue until the time of the end. Let both grow together until the time of the end. And so the angels, when the Antichrist comes forth, and then you see the two witnesses. When you see the two witnesses, Enoch and Elijah, recognize that we are at the midpoint. Because in my opinion, they are supposed to appear at the Great Tribulation, at the midpoint, and they will be killed in the streets of Jerusalem. Their bodies will stay there for 3.5 days. In my opinion, that 3.5 days represents the 42 months of what is the Great Tribulation, or the latter half of the 7 years that is the last years. Yes, Reality 358 asks, does Zen have a certain show explaining his position on the 1,000-year reign? Yeah, you can just look up Zen Garcia, the Millennial Reign, and you'll find several shows where I go into it, because so many people, are buying into and accepting that we're in the Millennial Reign and that we're in the short season, but that's not true, because the Antichrist hadn't even come forth. I mean, the real Antichrist, the fallen angel, the one that's going to be leading the beast kingdom, that's going to bring forth the AI technology, uh, the whole singularity and all that. All that's coming. The mark of the beast, where no man can buy or sell. We haven't got to that yet. The Antichrist has not even come forth yet in world exposure. So when that happens, then you'll know that the two witnesses are quickly on their way. And then afterwards, we will have the rapture of the church and the people of God being preserved from the wrath that is going to be poured out upon the wicked and those not written into the books of life. And so, you're welcome. All right. I appreciate all of you. Be blessed. Thank you again. We will see you on Saturday, 8 p.m. for the Digital Readers Club. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, every Saturday we get together. It's our Shabbat show, even though we know that Shabbat does not follow every Saturday. It follows the phases of the moon. And we go into all that with our Enochian calendar. All right, but anyways, I thank all of you. I pray for all of you. Let's actually close with a prayer. Father, I just humble myself before you in thanksgiving for all life and being. I thank you for this opportunity to speak these words, to share these truths, and to lead others into recognition of those riddles that you have preserved in the scriptures, that you have revealed to the prophets, that you have said to Joel and to the apostles, that you would pour out your spirit upon all flesh. We are in those times. We are the fig tree generation. You said, know ye the parable of the fig tree. And that we are in those times, wars, rumors of wars, famines, pestilences, earthquakes in diverse places, Antichrist, people deceiving others, a lot of deception going on. So I pray for discernment, Lord. Lead us and guide us in truth, and help us to do what we can to serve those that are less fortunate, that are in greater need, and to pass forward the blessings that you pour out so graciously upon all of us. Praise you, honor you, worship you, and give thanks to you for everything. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. God bless all. Good night.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us for this video and this broadcast. We appreciate all of you, and thank you for your patronage. Please do like and subscribe and share with your friends. God bless all of you in your seeking.